When I left Christianity and fundamentalism, I realized that churches teach a specific kind of doctrine that says that salvation hinges on how much free work you give. Now, Baptists will never admit to it, but they value a person by how much they give, whether it's physical labor, money, and time. You're considered a holier than thou Christian if you almost live in the church. By that I mean you're at every event, you're always there, you never are not there. Every moment that you are there, it's about giving, but there's always a hook. You want to be a part and seen by the elite, the cliques, the groups that really matter in church. But according to Jesus, they don't matter. Those kind of groups are not what Christianity is supposed to be about. And depending on how extreme your version of Christianity is, there's a transactional system there. They want people to get in the church and give labor, time, and money because that's the only thing that's going to keep the church going. And yeah, every church needs money, but your whole purpose is not supposed to be a business. It's about a charity. That's what churches are supposed to be. Not taxed. They're not non-profits, but they kind of operate in the same thing. Like they give donations, they give help, they care. They're there with supplies. But there's Christians at the churches I've been into, the Baptists, the fundamentalists, the extreme, definitely the MAGA circles, even though this was before MAGA. They have to outdo each other by who's the better Christian. It's not about it's not a good competition where people want to increase how much they give anonymously. It's always out there. People know who it is and why they're there. And it's real sad. You're supposed to give and do things without any assistance, any public notoriety or a thank you. You're supposed to do it because it's passion and it's something you want to help with. But when you're in cliques inside churches, it very, very quickly becomes a one-up somebody. And when your salvation, when your holiness, your godliness, and your identity in God hinges on how much free labor, how much money you give, how much time you spend in the church or around other Christians witnessing to believers, if all that tells people you're an awesome Christian, that's not why you're supposed to be doing it. Your salvation hinges on belief and adherence to purity, integrity. It's not about how much you give, how much time you spend there. The godliest people mentioned in the Bible weren't at church every moment. Sometimes the greatest giver is the person who can only afford 50 cents, not $5,000. But you don't really hear about that in church. You don't hear about that. The best versions of greed I have ever seen had to do with being at church. There is no institution under the blue sky that is more greedy, more insidious, more money grubbing than the church. That's why I heard this somewhere. If you want to get rich, start a religion. So true. What you do and how you do it is what's important. It's not what you get from it. And if you're judged as a moral, decent person because you give 25 unpaid hours a week, that doesn't make you a good person. Members of churches are supposed to outdo each other anonymously with love, compassion, empathy, kindness. Not to get in a group, not to be seen, not to be praised, but because you want to compete against other people in love. You don't have to know who they are, but you always want to give more. The problem is churches do thrive on the idea that the more you give, the better, more holy, more godly person you are, and that's not true. Some of the white cis heterosexual men that spent 30 hours a week unpaid at church, they didn't hold any what I would call salary jobs there. They turned out to be extremely toxic people. I wouldn't call them domestic violence perpetrators. I mean, they didn't hit anybody. There was a lot of verbal, emotional, and coercion going on, but at least they never harmed another human being with their hands. That doesn't make it okay. They were neglectful. They treated their wives like placeholders. Neglect, infidelity. Just because you're at church doing the most doesn't make you a good man or a good woman. It's not about what you do. It's why and what you expect out of it. And the real sad part is, I would say at least 70% of churches are all about social clubs. It's not about growing and learning. It's about being, existing, and being validated. That's not why you go to church. And I would say almost all the kids who went to all the Sunday school classes or under 18 classes for my entire life, except for 2 out of several hundred, they're all not in church anymore. Not in that church, not in any denomination. Because the majority of people that go to church are forced to by their parents, or they go because good people go to church. Well, that's not true, but they think so. If church is a social club, I mean, I could have more fun going to a party than to church. It's probably one of the most boring social events you could go towards, unless they're having some event where there's games, parties, or food. It's still going to be some of the most boring socializing imaginable. If you hinge your salvation and your holiness and your goodness by how much you do, it's not going to be an accurate measuring stick. Some of the worst human beings imaginable went to church and held church positions. They were there for years and hundreds of hours a year, but that doesn't make you a good person. It means you should know better, but it does not mean you're a decent person.